Welcome to A Road Less Traveled podcast. I'm your host, Hillary Heron, and today we have with us Katie Zenovich. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Happy to be here.
Can you please give us your title and what that means? Because I know you have a lot of titles.
My work title?
We'll start with your work title.
My work title. I'm the Senior Vice President for Development and External Affairs and the Chief Fund Development Officer for the Office of Philanthropy, which was formerly the foundation. So CEO of the foundation and Senior Vice President for Community Health System.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds like a lot of responsibility.
I know it's a huge mouthful, right? I mean, so you could say my name right, but forget the title.
Yeah.
It's just so much.
I can't remember anything anymore. So as I was looking at it, I was like, she don't have to tell us.
Yes.
So what does that mean for you? What does a day in the life look like?
Well, day in the life of my job, I'll say, is awesome. Mm-hmm. I am one of those people, and I don't know a whole lot of them myself, that gets to get up in the morning and say, I love what I do. Mm-hmm. I get to get up and do something that I feel really makes a big difference. Mm-hmm. I'm in a position where I can actually influence things that are positive for our community and positive for people. And it's very rewarding. It's extremely rewarding. I'm fortunate to have gotten to the place I am in healthcare, but specifically this organization. It's a fabulous organization. It's a big place. The largest private employer in the Central Valley region.
Wow.
And I'm one of 4 women at the top.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Okay, so then how many are at the top?
There are 13 in the senior leadership team. That includes our CEO, Craig Castro, our Chief Operating Officer, Craig Wagner, who you know also, and our CFO, Chip Newman. And then the rest are senior vice presidents like myself.
Okay. All right. Well, 4 of 13.
Yes.
That's pretty good.
And we all have very different assignments. I think it's really a great group because each one of us are experts at what we do. I could never do what one of my colleagues does, nor would I want to.
Yeah.
But at the same time, all together, we create something pretty cool.
So did you always know you wanted to go into healthcare?
No.
No. What did you want to do?
You mean when I was a little kid?
I mean, kind of like the progression, the 60,000 foot view.
It's kind of funny because I think that there's a little bit of a theme with some other women that I've spoken with in business or in their careers where it wasn't planned. It wasn't set out, when I'm in second grade. Actually, this is what I want to grow up to do. It wasn't at all for me. I mean, I was born and raised in Santa Barbara, and people go, that must have been nice. And it was nice until it wasn't. I mean, I'm the youngest of 4.
Okay.
And my parents were a lot older when I was born. Like, I would have shot myself. My mom was 46.
Okay.
And my dad was 50 when I came along.
Okay.
So big difference in age with the kids. That just was a surprise.
Yeah.
Mom would say I was a blessing.
Yeah.
But so they had it really well, the older siblings, and it was very, very nice, well-to-do life until my dad had problems with the business. Business kind of went away. Mom didn't work until she was 50. So, I was little.
Yeah.
And we went through a lot, and there was a lot of adversity. And at the time, I really thought, I don't know what it's going to be, but it's not going to be like this. So I had, I think, a drive from the very beginning. I mean, when I was very young.
Yeah.
To be self-sufficient, not have to depend on someone else for my success. And I knew inside that I had a hunger and I could probably do quite a bit if I put that hunger to work. So it wasn't until I accidentally got in a job that was, here you need to make a little money to pay for your apartment. After I moved here to come to Fresno State after the encouraging of a sister who married a dairyman in Tulare.
Okay.
Because she wanted to go to the Bulldog games.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
and you're like,
that's my whole
I mean,
decision.
I guess okay.
Yeah. I applied to one college. I got in, and so I could live near her, and that was about it. But I took a job in a clinic. And I mean, I had no aspirations to go into healthcare. I didn't really ever think about that. But when I got into this clinic, you learn some of the best things from some of the worst experiences.
Yeah.
But you also, and from the worst people. Can I say that?
It's true.
And so I had a little bit of both in that setting, but I also got exposed to so many things that were good, that could help people. And I knew that was part of how I was woven. I really wanted to do something that would help people, and seemed like in healthcare, that's what it was all about. And so I kind of stuck with it.
Okay. So did you stay in the healthcare, through college and so on? You've stayed in the healthcare kind of world?
Yes.
Because you do a little bit in the philanthropy aspect of it too, yeah?
Yes.
Or a lot. A lot. I'm going to say a lot of it because...
Yes. But that wasn't always part of my experience. I mean, I worked in this clinic, and the good thing was they allowed me to learn every aspect of the clinic. I worked the front office. I worked the back office. I worked the billing. I probably shouldn't have been giving shots, but I gave,
but here we are.
I did that. They were just like flu shots and stuff, or I assisted in minor procedures and passed out one time on a toe. But, you where you don't want to be.
Yeah.
Bless those folks that work in the OR and in trauma that I have with working in our hospitals. Boy, I couldn't do it.
If I tried to watch a guy I was dating once get stitches in his forehead,
yeah.
I'm with you.
I can see it. I'm calm in those situations. I can see it. I just don't want to do it day in and day out. I will support them every way I possibly can. But I did realize, through all that healthcare was probably a good place. And it was sort of like the, what are they called? The monkey rings,
Yes.
You hold on to one and then you swing to the next one before you quite let go. That's how my career grew. I met someone who was a physical therapist who would continue to bring patients into that particular clinic. And he was saying, hey, there's this job over here that you might want to take a look at. I mean, I think you'd be great. Well, as I was still going to school, and I applied and I got it. And so I moved to that job where actually I was trained to fit people for their first ambulatory device.
Oh, wow.
Wheelchairs and walkers and work with
so
people.
Heavy though.
Yeah, it was, you know what? Again, it was fulfilling. Hillary,
It was rewarding.
Like, yes. Where, someone might come in and they've had a spinal cord injury and it is devastating. But you're giving them the freedom in a way of mobility, to be able to get around independently, hopefully, electric wheelchairs too. Yeah. So, and, I looked at it that way, like this is not a downer. This is actually really something that is empowering people. And then, while there, it was the monkey rings again. I've looked back sometimes and thought, it really kind of is not only, it's who you know.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to know a lot, but at the same time, really the relationships are so powerful and so important. And that's really what's helped me along is people with, the connections and the relationships in order to open doors for me. And my decision was to walk through them or not.
Well, and they must have recognized in you, not only do you have a heart for service, but you are highly competent. So then they're more likely, you have a good relationship with them. You're kind to them. They can, this opportunity is here or there.
Yeah.
Have you had any mentors that have, kind of pushed you to walk through those doors?
Yes, I've definitely had some mentors in unexpected places, I did have one step out of healthcare for a while. So the medical equipment company, and then I went to I worked for a hospital in town for some time, St. Agnes, for 11 years.
Okay.
And I mean, some of the folks that I worked with there were really influential, and I think I aspired to emulate them. Then I also had some of the best lessons that were kind of the worst also.
Yeah.
I remember I love the place, and I think the institution is still fabulous, but also, it's some of the people that you're around that may or make or break your experience, right?
Yep.
And your day.
Yes.
So I will never forget, though. It stuck with me forever. Once, the one time, it was my very first time going in and make a presentation to the board. Mm-hmm. And they had a nun as the CEO. You look up to the nun and you look up to the CEO, and then when it's the same, they're both the same. It's kind of like, this is really big. And I was probably 28 and shaking a little going in with my presentation. I look around the room and she is the only woman in the room besides me.
Oh boy.
And so that was, it was noted and a little bit intimidating for me at the moment. Did my presentation. All seemed to go well until I was called to her office afterwards.
Oh, man.
And I thought, oh, my gosh, what did I do? You're thinking you're retracing every single thing.
This could either be really good or really bad.
Yes. And it wasn't good.
Oh, no. Really?
She said, you need to cut your hair. You need to tone it down. I said, tone what down? It.
Oh.
I'm like... I mean,
did you just call me it?
True story. No, I was like, okay, so what do I see? I mean, like, so I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Obviously, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
But at that time, when I was that young, I did it. I cut my hair. I wore pants. I wore, I toned down the makeup. I was not going. I don't be creating something other than what you open your mouth to say. Was her message. And I thought to myself, okay, I'll try that for a while. It's not me. And I know I'm smart. I know when they listen, I have something to say. And I think that they will realize that. It didn't work for me very long because I didn't feel good.
Well, it's inauthentic.
It
That
was, yes.
That would be a real challenge.
Yes. So that advice, though, has stuck with me for some time. So I think I'm conscious of it, and I have to prove in a way half the time what I'm going to say. You're going to find relevant and important or smart.
And you are or you aren't. Like, you're going to hear it either way. Yeah, you're going to hear. It doesn't matter what color you're wearing. Yeah. You're going to hear what I'm saying.
Right.
You're either going to take it or you are not.
Yes.
In my experience, it rarely has anything to do with what you're wearing.
Right.
But it seems like people want to point to that or call that out or, and I'm guessing I don't have very much medical field experience, but it sounds like it is still a highly male dominated industry.
Except for our nursing population.
Okay.
So we have more female nurses today than male nurses.
Okay.
And we're an employer of 11,000, like I mentioned, but which is really big. And there's over 4,000, maybe 5,000 that are nurses. And I'll say RNs. And so, but there's a lot of men that are aspiring to get into the nursing field, and I think that's awesome.
Yes.
I think in our leadership, when it comes to the very top, that does look that way. But in terms of the rest of the cascading levels of our hospital administration, it's a pretty even mix. Just so happens that ours is that way.
I mean, it's good to hear that when we talk about male domination, sorry, my bad, doesn't mean to sound like that. But when we say male dominated, sometimes it means the number of people, and sometimes it means the people in decision-making capacities, because one of the things that we have kind of bounced around, like our internal team, is nursing in particular. Like, okay, there's a lot of women in nursing. Are those women taking on leadership roles? Do they want to take the next step? Something that I ran into in the automotive industry when I had to resign from my board seats, then, it was a nightmare to try to find another woman to run, because what I wanted to do was backfill, we worked so hard to get here, and it's been a real challenge. Do you find that it's hard to get women to take on additional leadership roles?
So we have some really great aspiring leaders and leaders already that are women within our organization. But I will say, I recognize what you're saying. We have, it's kind of like in education, right? You have a really good teacher in that classroom, and then they're promoted, and then they become the principal, and then they've been taken out of the classroom, and
they're a worse principal. They were a
they
better
might not
teacher.
have all the skills. Yes. Do they learn the spreadsheets and the budgeting and all that stuff when they were, I don't know, that the stuff that they need to be in administration. Well, it's kind of, we have wonderful nurses that are at the bedside or providing care in the settings within the hospital. And some of them, that's where they know they're best, and leaving that place is kind of leaving their passion.
That's no good for anybody.
It's not good for anybody. But then there's others that take that and they bring it to the leadership level. And that makes them an even better leader because they get it. They understand, they've seen it, they've been there, and they're bringing it to the next level. So they can work with the others to make appropriate decisions because they've been there and they bring that with them. So we don't have a huge amount of trouble in healthcare finding folks who want to be in leadership, which is good. We have quite a few programs also, if there's ones that are looking to, ascend, that we help them do that.
You read my mind. That was my next question.
Okay.
Do you have, those programs in place, leadership, mentorship?
Yes.
So that people who are interested can discover if it is for them.
Yes.
I mean, there are roles in leadership that I've taken on. I've been like, oh, I can lead things, but not that, know?
Right. Well, and there's a certain amount of exposure that they might need to have to make that decision too. So we have quite a bit of that. We also, speaking of nurses, we have a lot of people who are maybe a medical assistant or a patient care assistant, which they do transport. So they maybe don't have the education to be a nurse.
Yeah.
We have programs to help them become certified and become a CNA, or from the CNA to become an LVN, or from the LVN to become an RN, and an RN even to get their MSN, bachelor's or master's. And all of that helps us and helps you. It helps our community, because when they're, again, educated and skilled, and they're providing better care and better leadership for this organization.
And as a hospital, I even in private sector, right? I mean, it is private, but still a happy client, a happy patient that's the best recommendation you can get. That's the goal. So in order to get that, you need happy staff, or mostly happy staff at least. What was my question? Do you mentor anybody? Do you see people wanting kind of, maybe not your exact path, but really interested in the role that you play?
You asked me just briefly about philanthropy, and that's another one I kind of fell into. You don't, aspire as a little kid to become a senior vice president or CEO of philanthropy at the. But yes, I have actually. This happens quite frequently, and I enjoy it. So I kind of carve time out to sit down with folks. If they ask me about my path in philanthropy, how I got here, it's usually when I like to tell. It's mostly women who are asking me those questions. Tell them that it's about eating the broccoli. I hate to say it. If you don't like it, I'm sorry. You got to get through it.
Yeah,
it's gonna be good for you. Sometimes there's very difficult things in getting there, and sometimes it takes a long time. I've had young folks, probably I will say young, between 25 and 35, who want to know, how did you get to where you are? I want to be in that position someday. And it's really hard, because I'd love to tell them that here's a magic wand and you can do it tomorrow.
Right.
But it doesn't happen like that. It takes a long time and investment and steps along the way. And sometimes you get a boo-boo and need to recalibrate, but and hard work and focus and dedication. I mentor people whenever they ask me to tell them how do you do what you do in asking people for money? How do you raise the millions of dollars that you raise on an annual basis? We raise at minimum $15 million a year.
That's amazing.
And sometimes more. I mean,
Hopefully more.
For
our community, hopefully more.
For this community. I mean, when we were building the Community Cancer Institute, for example, on the Clovis Community Hospital campus, it's been 5-6 years now, but it's so thrilling because it's fixing a problem. And this is what I say. It's not about me asking anybody for money. It's about me facilitating somebody with the means to make an investment in an asset that's going to pay off for you, your kids, your family, your grandchildren, this community for decades to come. And that Cancer Institute was at the time $68 million. I was on the hook to raise $20 million in 5 years. Well, that's planning, and we did it in 3 years, Hillary. Wow. I mean, it was like, because people understood the need and they understood the problem that we had, where people would get that bad diagnosis and say, crap, I got to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because it's not here. And
changing that narrative, just side note, changing that narrative still is really hard.
Oh, it is really hard for healthcare in general, and the trust that we have to convey and hope that people own with us, because yes, the Central Valley has, I say it dips in the middle of the state, not just because it's a valley, but it's a little behind on some things, and many of our own natives are our worst enemies when it comes to how we look at our Central Valley or its capabilities, and that healthcare I can speak to, where people feel like it's just better somewhere else. I mean, that Cancer Institute, when we opened it, was so great. Went just skyrocketing immediately. We didn't realize the volume that was, we projected out maybe a year, and it was like 3 months we were there. But thousands of people, great. Beautiful. And it's all under one roof. And nobody has to go, to all these different places to get
is the worst
labs
part.
And x-ray and see this provider and all that, which my dad had to do. And it was awful. And I'm trying to get him there, time off. This is all in one place, under one roof.
Can I interrupt you really quick?
Sorry.
Your perspective on that as a female, the family caretaker, that happens. It is what it is.
Yes.
But your perspective was, in my opinion, integral in making sure that all of those things were accounted for, because that's not sadly, sorry, men, that's not a burden most men have to carry, and a burden and a blessing, right? You get the time with the person you care about, but they don't see that, they go to work and then they ignore everything else that's going on. Yeah. So I think that's incredible.
And then, and how it used to be, and was I'd take that day off so that I could get my dad to whatever the appointment was. And then the next couple days, there was another appointment, and then he'd have another, oh, Dad, you got the wrong day? So I wasn't really I was like, frustrated. Yeah. So, because it's hard to juggle all of that with your family, with your kids, with your job, and now you have a sick loved one. So that was a big deal in fixing the problem. And that's the way it should be. Don't you think? I agree. The model 100% really, agree. Yeah. So we're doing it again right now. I'll tell you about it. Well, the beauty of having that in place and proven, and seeing thousands of people now and saving lives and having all kinds of cutting edge technology and research and experts gave us the example of what we want to do next in neurosciences. And when I say neurosciences, it's not as easy to understand as cancer, but because everybody understands cancer. Neurosciences is if somebody's had a head injury or a spinal cord injury, or if they've had brain tumor, or if they, if it's Parkinson's, ALS, MS,
It's a little more expansive.
That's right. And so head and brain kind of stuff, and movement disorders. Well, the way it has been for folks who get any of those diagnoses, guess what? They've got to go somewhere 4 hours north or 4 hours south. It's going to kill me, but I am bound and determined to bring that here and fix that problem. Again, I started work on this, you probably remember, probably 8-9 years ago. And we are the ones to do it. Community's the one institution to do it. It's an expensive thing, but it's so important that when somebody gets something really big and bad, that they don't have to go leave their support.
They may not even have the resources to do that.
Thank you. That's the other part of the mission. That's the part that I get fulfillment from every day, because what we do is take care of everybody, whether they don't even have the ability to pay. So what we're doing is bringing the best possible health care. I'm facilitating the funds to build it, to get it here, to coalesce it, the investment, however we can cobble that together. That's what I'm doing, so that people that don't have the means can still have access to the best possible care. They have families too. They have loved ones too.
And
they're human
bleed
too.
the same color. They deserve the same access.
Right.
I think that's incredible. And your passion is palpable. And that's something I've always loved about you. It's always inspiring. And how close are you?
We're really close. I got goosebumps.
Oh, sorry.
We're really close. Really close. So we're this time looking to raise $30 million. I know it sounds like a lot of money. It is a lot of money.
And I'm going to have to say, in the healthcare world, though, $30 million doesn't buy a lot.
It's crazy expensive. We're over halfway there as I speak to you today.
That's incredible.
So the beauty is, when we get to 25 million, shovels are in the ground and we're starting the project, and then we'll just, the last 5 million we can raise over the following year, because it's going to take about 18 to 24 months to build it, and it's going to be downtown. Yes. I know you care about downtown, adjacent from the trauma center, because that's where it should be.
As it should be.
Right? So big, stuff comes into the trauma center when they're an inpatient, and then all the neuroscience follow-up will be in the center. I mean, you can, if you're a golfer, you can hit a 7-iron and you'd hit it.
Okay. That's amazing.
Yes.
I'm actually really excited for that. I had a spinal injury from a car accident, and it would have been much preferable to be here.
Yes.
Transporting back and forth wasn't good for my situation. It
No.
wasn't good for
Another
anything.
trauma.
It totally is. My dad actually ended up they nicked my spinal cord, and I was leaking spinal fluid. They had to he packed me in with pillows, and it was a whole thing. So I personally have passion for this project.
Yes.
I think it's amazing.
And what's so cool about it too is, speaking of passion projects, is that it also, being downtown, adjacent from the trauma center at Community Regional Medical Center, it's like a triangle, very close to Terry's house.
Yes.
So if someone's had a big car accident, say, or something that's caused them a major injury where it's their head trauma or spine, the family members can stay at Terry's house nearby if they're coming from out of town. And we have a lot of people from out of town.
Yep.
Terry's house is a place that doesn't charge. It's like, people will understand it like a Ronald McDonald house, but it's not part of the children's network. So it's a single, not funded by that big, vehicle. It's a local hospital, though we're the only locally owned, operated hospital. It's a local entity that just is a perfect place for somebody to stay nearby, so their loved ones can have their love and support. Sometimes their prayers, which is not exactly what they get when they're,
far.
When they're far away, nobody's there, or just the medical care and the physicians and nurses and staff do the best they possibly can. But that spiritual support or love is really what else heals them.
So here's a statistic you will know that always blows me out of the water. We're the only level 1 trauma center between
Sacramento and LA.
That's wild.
15,000 square mile radius. The only one. If you're in San Francisco, okay, I used a golf analogy with you. You can stand in one trauma center and you can hit a 5-iron. Well, some people don't hit that very well. So I'll say 7-iron.
Yes.
And hit one there. And you can chip over to this one. And there's probably 5 in a radius where we're the only ones, which means it's really busy. That means if you're in on your way to Cayucas and something happens, they're going to airlift you to Community Regional downtown, or you fall off Half Dome.
I was going to say
Yosemite. You're going to come here. They do.
You're farming in Merced.
Yes.
If you're driving on the 99, if you're in the mountains, that's a lot of, it's a lot of responsibility.
It is.
For
our
little community.
It's a different place than a regular emergency department. And I'm reminded of a story since we're talking about a road less traveled and being a female. And, when I first started at Community, I thought I'm going to call these people and I'm going to shadow them. Right.
Yeah.
And I called up the chief of trauma. I had been, remember, at another hospital for 11 years. So, I had a blip into education, which I think all prepared me magically for what I'm doing. But this chief of trauma says, okay, you want to meet me and put on the scrubs? And I said, yes, I do. And I'll spend a day in your shoes, basically, so I understand it. And I got there. Okay, I was wearing pumps.
Yeah.
But
he said, I'm going to have to change my
goes
shoes.
Like this. Really? And I said, yes. I put on the scrubs, and secretly in my mind, I was thinking, gosh, I hope I don't see a kid, but I'm going to make it through this. I'm going to see everything he does. And what's the difference between trauma and so I can represent this place. So I can be the face and the voice for this organization. Mm-hmm. So the first thing I did is walked into the trauma center, which was super busy. The trauma bay had a little girl, and her mom hadn't put her in a seatbelt.
Oh my God!
So she was awake though, but she didn't have a scalp. And at that time, I thought I'm in the right place. Mm-hmm. I'm going to do what I can for her.
Doesn't matter what shoes I'm wearing.
Didn't matter what shoes I was wearing. Exactly. So
I think it's not as common as it should be to find your passion and to have the heart for what you do the way that you do. And I am grateful to have you in our community because that is what is needed to parlay resources into incredible services.
There's so much that can be done if people are invited and or if they're educated or they get to know where they can really make an impact. And I think that one of the best things I experience is when I work with somebody that can do that. I call it donor investment, that can make a donor investment. And they do it and they see that impact. They're the happiest one in the room.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
I love that. It makes me so happy that they just did that, right? And I got to put it together.
So to wrap it up, what is a piece of advice that you would give to somebody who wants to find their passion for what they do, the way that you have been able to turn it into their superpower?
Oh boy, that's a big one. Well, I can tell you this. One of my mentors back in the day said something to me that I carry with me today.
Other than tone it down.
That was not my mentor.
Sorry, just kidding.
That's a different one. I have two things. One is I was kind of griping because I found out that a guy I was working with was making more money than I am. Mm-hmm. I was. And I felt like I was working twice as hard, and I probably was. Mm-hmm. And but our job class was pretty much equal. An assignment was pretty much equal, but I was just doing all kinds of stuff. And so I was complaining to a friend of mine that was a mentor. And you know what she said? She said, "Do you like what you do?" And I said, "Yes, I really do." "Do you believe in the mission of what you do?" I said, "Yes." "You know what? If I didn't believe in the mission, I probably couldn't. I am not going to be able to work somewhere I don't believe in the mission." Mm-hmm. "Do you respect the people that you work for and work, with?" I said, "Yeah, actually, I do." Are you feeling like you're fairly compensated? I mean, fairly, or is he just making more? I said, well, actually, I guess I'm probably fairly compensated for what I do. And she said, okay, then shut up.
You're like,
I'm like,
what? Not where I thought that was going.
But the way I put it is not at all. Yeah. But the way that I took it was exactly what I here I am is probably 20 something years later. And I'm like, do I believe in the mission? Mm-hmm. Do I like what I do? And do I like the people I work with? And am I fairly compensated? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I don't have to be paid the most, but I do need to be fairly compensated. If I have all three things, it's kind of like I will continue to run through walls that way. If one of them is not there, mm-hmm. I can't do it.
You need the trifecta.
I need that. That's how I would advise someone coming to me and saying, look for that. Mm-hmm. Look for that. Because if you don't have one of those things, I think you got to find something else. Mm-hmm. And then I will tell you this, when switching jobs one time, when I was actually leaving Fresno State to come to work for Community, mm-hmm. I was fine. I liked it. I was good. I was happy. And, monkey rings kind of, and somebody's like, who, by the way, I worked with a long time ago. Prior to that, it was Craig Castro was one of them who recruited me to come work at Community. And I was torn because I'm like, I like it here. I'm fine. And I'm going to jump off into something that I'm not quite sure of. And my mother said to me, my mom, who didn't start working until she was 50, mm-hmm. right? She started as a preschool teacher, and then she ended up, her last job was being, she was the director of the Natural History Museum in Santa Barbara.
Wow.
And then, another museum in Tulare when she moved up closer to me. She was the director. I mean, that's like, so she says, okay, everybody says you can do whatever you set your mind to. I'm not going to tell you that. I'm going to tell you this. She said, you can make this the best thing you've ever done. You can decide that. And I went, you're right. And so I decided when I came to Community, doesn't matter if I'm a female or a male, mm-hmm. I'm going to make this the best thing I've ever done. Mm-hmm. And that's my attitude.
That's a great mindset for men and for women.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to reflect on that every now and then because I didn't always take my mom's advice.
Well, and some days are harder than others. Let's be fair. Some days are.
But that was a good one.
Like, I'm going to give up. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And finally, because I should have weaved this in earlier, what do you do when you want to give up? You've taken all your own advice. You've gone through all the things and you're like, okay, I still want to give up. What do you do?
Yeah. Well, yeah, nobody's perfect. And I think sometimes what happens to me is I'll get to a place where it's not an overwhelmed or give up. It's mm-hmm. more like a paralysis.
Yes, I understand that.
Where I'm like, okay, so
the battery's low. You need to recharge.
That's right. Breathing is essential. Mm-hmm. Self-reflection, and I will often take lots of notes, mm-hmm. And then I'll look back at them later. And the good thing about that is that I can check them off. Mm-hmm. It makes you feel like a sense of accomplishment. I have to get out. I have to get outdoors. We go take walks it's kind of almost a hike, but not really a hike. Mm-hmm. It's a walk, but by the river.
Okay.
And I think that if I need to really get away, I got to go to the ocean. Mm-hmm. That's where I came from. And so I breathe that air and I go walk on that beach. I have to.
That's amazing.
That's the recharge.
Get that vitamin C.
Yeah.
SEA. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here today. And thank you for sharing all your incredible advice and for everything you do for our Central Valley.
Well, appreciate you and appreciate what you're doing. This is very cool. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
A huge thank you to our incredible guests for sharing their stories, wisdom, and breaking down barriers with us. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. Your support means the world to me and helps spread the word about the amazing women paving the road less traveled in male-dominated industries. If you have suggestions for a future guest or topic you'd like me to explore, please reach out on social media. I'd love to hear from you. Follow me on your favorite social platform for updates and behind the scenes. Keep pushing boundaries, challenging norms, and lifting each other up.